My second podcast, Our Present, also known as the Middle. How did we get here, folks? Half blessed and half cursed. Per our history, secular and biblically, Torah, Islamic, our ancestors were on the gifted landmass, once known as Paradise, Gondwana land, Pangea, etc., acting like they had sense, being positive, loving one another, having a good time. Dominoes, dancing, barbecuing, maybe. We don't know. We weren't there. When alleged marked leprous rebels went against our Creator's blueprint and started collecting bodies for the hell of it. The Creator's original blueprint. That's us barbecuing and playing games until somebody seeked and destroyed us. I couldn't be more simplistic with it. Yeah, barbecuing, playing games, that's us. All people of African descent, whether they live in North or South America, the Caribbean, or any part of the world, are Africans and belong to the African nation. I agree. Pagan satanic agenda is to tear the nation apart and scatter the tribes. Virginia passed two acts in 1682 that combined Native Americans and Africans into one category as Negroes and other as slaves. Cherokee tribes in the Carolinas were reclassified as Negro and other slaves. This picture is over 100 plus years. It shows how the Carolina Cherokee looked. And I'm just showing this because we need to put our history together. And I have a really good source called Fez and Feathers. This guy is like bringing all of our information together, tribal information in the Americas, where it shows, as most of land shows, that we were the first ones there. We're the originals. The brown race we're the originals. What we call the black race. Why isn't this in the history books? That's all of the tribes before America was infiltrated by pagans. North America before illegal immigration. Again, all the tribes that don't claim us. They pretend just like they don't know that in order to be what they call an Indian or native now, you would have to have a black dominant gene with that submissive gene of pagan blood, I guess white. How did the Pilgrims become Indians? They taught us we came to America on a slave ship in the 1400s, but the artifacts show we were already here in America in the 600s. This is funny to me. See, Bessie May, it says right here, we brought you here from Africa on a boat. You are indeed African. If you don't get out of my face with that book. And then the other one says, the original deadbeat dad who owes 460 years in arrears child support. Not that black women that married these men or became their concubines weren't also at fault. We need to start telling the truth about our history. 35 years of Hollywood historically based black films. We got 60 slave films, 20 war crime films, 25 segregation, and 1 African greatness. Control the narrative or they will. Imagine being so ashamed of your history that you make it illegal to teach it to your children. That critical race theory is what that's talking about. U.S. Conservatives 2020. We have to leave the statues of racism in place so that we can remember and teach about the history of racism. U.S. Conservatives 2021. It is illegal to teach about the history of racism. This is crazy. I can't believe we're actually fighting about whether or not teachers should be allowed to tell the truth in history class. And I can. I can believe it. As I discussed in the first pod, we have the bloodline of the chosen children, the tribes, coursing through our veins, as many of us have a small amount or a great amount of pagan leper marked bloodline competing for space. Dark brown children of the tribe have more of the original bloodline. Light brown children of the tribe have more of the marked bloodline. Beige children have a very small amount of original blood and a very great amount of marked blood. And pink, also known as alabaster children of the leopard's clan, have leper ancestors who made sure that marked blood was dominant. It is what it is. This has nothing to do with being racist or delusional. Our familial histories and testimonies show this to be true. All we have to do is sit down and put two and two together. You will get four. Lepers and sellouts who follow the pagan/satanic agenda are very aware of this. Satan has an agenda just like the Most High has a purpose. If we were allegedly living for hundreds of years, procreating and making a beautiful race of babies that would love the ladies, as long as we stayed on path, why wouldn't the adversary who hates the Most High because he was exiled for not following the blueprint, why wouldn't he want to help shorten our lives so we won't prosper and pass on generational blessings? Of course, the plan is to convince us to indulge in filth and leave it on the earth for the next generation to be cursed. We can turn it around though. All of the info is here for the taking. I've torn down almost every facade, letting the Creator and my ancestors guide me. No occult, no homo. I read, I researched, I shared, and listened to my elders walking the earth with me. Everything is about their setup being counterfeit. Two kingdoms, two choices. The counterfeit kingdom. Lies, lies, lies. Oppression and slavery. Gods and demigods. Matthew, do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your father, he who is in heaven. That's Matthew 23:9. Excuse me. God's kingdom. Economy of truth, compassion, and help. Without wealth, hierarchy, lords, owners, kings, demigods, or tyrants. Matthew 7:15. Beware false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Matthew 24:11. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. Acts 26:18. To open their eyes, to turn them from darkness to light and from the authority of Satan to God. Chaos and lies are consistently sold in their counterfeit faux facades stolen from the Creator's blueprint. It's the same setup as our ancestors' real world, but the Creator will show you every stolen and/or fake situation, possession, and person involved. There are false churches and faux prophets by the boatload, selling progressive liberal ways instead of traditional word. Many of these agendas are mixed in with our fight to be treated equal because we wake up brown and can't do one thing about it. Thank God. He knows some niggas will try. BBLs and other vain procedures by man and woman have proven that. The agenda encourages members to accept homosexuality, polygamy, pedophilia, bestiality, including licking and kissing animals in the mouth. Too many megachurches are full of secret society / frat and soror members pushing the ancient pagan elite agenda, i.e. old school Satanism disguised as a New World agenda, under pagan witchery, culture rituals which are against our Creator's blueprint. It's a lot to hear and take, but the Creator's children have to, because droves of folks are assisting with the spread of satanic filth, and it can't be said enough. I'm going to hit the same subjects in every broadcast, every podcast, book, and platform, because sex and drug trafficking engulfed in pedophilia, prostitution, orgies, polygamy, the LGBTQ agenda, more money, more money, more money, material possessions, greed, and selfishness, plus anything else that's against the blueprint, leading to the breakdown of our fam, destroying the Creator's creations, is sickening and wrong. And Nick Knives needs to stop showing out, being greedy, and helping with Satan's chaotic counterfeit master plan. That's a mouthful. Biblical word. For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. 2 Timothy 4:3-4. Quranic word. Believers, if a troublemaker brings you news, check it first, in case you wrong others unwittingly and later regret what you have done. And be aware that it is God's messenger who is among you. In many matters, you would certainly suffer if he were to follow your wishes. God has endured faith to you and made it beautiful to your hearts. He has made disbelief, mischief, and disobedience hateful to you. It is people like this who are rightly guided through God's favor and blessing. God is all knowing and all wise. Quran 49, 6 through 8. The agenda looks attainable and fun and worth our souls, but it ain't. It ain't worth it, Miss Seeley. We can break these invisible chains the Dark Lord has us bound with in this modern day hell and enslavement count, and we can get back on path where we can reap all of the blessings we were promised by the covenant. Me and mine are currently doing just that, no cap. Allow me to share their evil master plan, the game, their old school design, the agenda, and how to avoid it. Once you understand what and how they are using it against us. Old World Order, also known as OWO. Ancient master and slave living. Many are not aware, but almost, if not all, of the slave/master relationships were based off of hedonistic sex. The breakdown in every relationship, the slave has to first accept the setup, the contract, if you will. We are being told a raggedy racist can walk up with a weapon and alleged power and take an innocent person by force to a place to be abused. I challenge it and say the only way a monster, whether racist or not, can take an adult under duress to a place to endure abuse would be if the person was as dark, meaning they sold their soul, told the Creator to shove it, and suffered the consequences for the sins and abominations they committed, also known as curses. Before I become every name in the book, allow me to present receipts. There are people in our everyday lives leaving the house with only one or two people knowing that they are going to sell ass, literally. There are people that help with crime every day. They pimp children. They sell dope in the hood. Some to their own parents. They steal and kill, and not many know it. There are folks whom some look up to and put them on pedestals while willing to fight if someone proves that their icon is doing everything under the sun to become famous. Those people I just listed are selling their souls daily. And when horrible things happen to them, including becoming enslaved to folks who they allowed to have power over them, many of us do not understand why. It took me years to research it and then admit that it was happening. I wanted us to be the victims. I just knew pagans were completely at fault. I wanted young babies to be innocent. I didn't want to admit that they can be trained to rape other children and blow someone's brains out at 9. It wasn't until I got on my path and began really researching, listening, and practicing word that I understood only evil begets evil. Only good begets good. If something evil happens, everybody and everything associated is playing in the dark. I have evidence from so many cases and ain't one lie told with discernment from the Creator. Every case, every testimony has been shown through truth. Ipso facto, every enslaved ancestor I studied ended up in that position because they turned from positivity, also known as the Creator's blueprint, and sold their souls. Just as many of our fam are doing today, locally and in the entertainment industry, making contracts with the devil. This is going to be information overload, as always, because there's a lot we need to research, relearn, and then release as we get on path. I will be going over the info I studied and researched for the last 30 plus years and therefore can prove were the first mistakes we made as tribes. We accepted rituals, the satanic setup under principalities and demons, and all other downfalls that followed. Every last tribe under the original chosen children were lured off the path and happily went against the Creator with Satan and his original helpers. Leper pagans. No lies told. I have proof. Firstly, I want to show every tribe that played in the dark occult, practicing rituals, conjuring demons, while marrying pagans and selling birthrights and land and possessions to them that was not theirs to sell. Much like today. Hence the reason we're on these modern day plantations, reservations, metropolises, and in their dystopian pagan man-made hellfire caves in this day and time. The first one is the African American rituals. Black family rituals, rites of passage for the African American family. If you look us up, you will be able to see us practicing rituals in all types of frats and sororities, all types of other secret societies, gangs, and clubs, all against God. African rituals. These 7 tribal traditions are just a small part of what makes the people of Africa so spellbindingly colorful. And they're showing different ways that they've ritualized themselves. Rituals of resistance. African Atlantic religion in Congo and the Low Country South in the era of slavery. Rituals, dances, prayers. Ritual mass. And then they're doing ritual dances down there. Next, we have Australian rituals. 11 traditions only Australians can understand. The Kula and magic rituals to remove wood spirits, to soften trade partners and make them generous, to prevent shipwreck, to impress trade partners. They perform ritual bathing, anointing with oil, and ritual dressing. Then we also have myth or rituals. And they're just talking about the many religious rituals reenacted in a myth and a story. In Australia, that's 2 tribes down. Asian rituals. 5 of our favorite Asian rituals that have positively impacted the quality of our lives. On this back, we have East Spring Investments, Asian rituals for good luck and fortune. There's different rituals. You can look them up. Native American rituals, ghost dancing. Great Plains, ghost dancing, spiritual movements. And Native American rituals, again, ghost dancing. All of them all of these tribes, their rituals go hand in hand. You'll see that. Inuit rituals, animism and shamanism. The Inuits and the Aurora spirits. Their homelands in Greenland, northern Canada, far east Siberia, and northern Alaska. Everybody wears their masks, their feathers, and pretty much are guided by their pagan blood. Hispanic rituals, traditions deeply rooted, and they name 7 local celebrations. And you can just look these up. I'll have the information, but you can look them up and research them yourself. It's the easiest way to believe. Nobody, as a rule, believes what other people are telling them, and I don't suppose they should. I just do the work and hope everybody catches on. When people are doing the work for me, I certainly catch on. Ritual similarities in tribes, African, Asian, Islanders. Social practices, rituals, festive events around the world. Their habitual activities that structure the lives of communities and groups. They are significant because they reaffirm the identity of those who practice them as a group or a society. Social, ritual, and festive practices may help to mark the passing of the seasons, events in agricultural calendar, or stages of a person's life. They're linked to communities' worldview. You better believe it. And then they talk about the rituals and festive events that take place at special times and places. In some cases, access to rituals may be restricted to certain members of the community. Initiation rites, burial ceremonies are 2 examples. Some festive events are a key part of public life and open to all members. Carnivals and events to mark the new year, beginning of spring, harvest, inclusive occasions coming all over the world because they're doing all that summer solstice stuff and they're ritualizing to these gods and whatnot, their dead ancestors. A bunch of stuff God didn't say we had to do. And since the beginning of sin to the 21st century we live in at this moment, every last tribe picked up their rituals, demon gods, and dark culture from their pagan leper enemies, friends, and families. No lie told, do your research. Pagan rituals. What do pagans ritualize? A book of pagan rituals. And I have them in front of Stonehenge in their white garb that almost looks like KKK. Where the Euro, Caucasus, ancient Grecian, Roman, Viking, American, Salem witch trials during Harry Potter's travels, lepers were the first group to play in the dark with the devil and demons. Hard. And then they passed it on throughout our lands, later becoming their plantations, reservations, countries, and cities. Every tribal history shows that, and theirs does too. And I know you might not be able to see these. Like I said, they will be on my site and on the pods. These are charts and graphs of their satanic setup. They never stray too far from this format. We will see it in a pyramid form that the secret societies use. We will see it on graphs that the corporate world uses. We will see the exact same setup in the porn industry, as well as any sexual debauchery on earth. Slave and master setups. Let's take a look at a few, shall we? The first one is the Hegelian master-slave dialectic outline, also known as a bunch of dark. So we have master or lord, which is for in German. Slave or bondsman, Knecht. Independent existence or thinghood in general. Every single chartograph includes different formulas for the slave master setup, which has been around as long as sin and abomination. And most dark that I find for pagans, it's going to be up under their German lineage. Brits are also, very dark, and um, Scots, all of their lineages have dark affiliations as far as paganism. But Germans, they really have a boatload. Precondition chain. We have the master, the slaves, and under that we have master slave versus dialogical. But this is their corporate setup as well as just their regular master slave setup, including the one our ancestors bought into. This is a business corporate prototype, as is the yellow graph above it. They are the same diff as the master slave dumb subsexual relationship that we were taught. So master is dominant and slave is subservient or submissive. That we were taught was ancestral slavery. So we have on top master, concrete master, slave. That's some sort of corporate outline, and then under it we also have some sort of corporate outline. But when you look at the master slave relationship sexually, they're still set up this way. That's how I found out what we were up to. Organizational charts, board of trustees, advisories, head, HR. So I'm just basically showing an organogram that shows corporate organizational chart setup, and then Satan's kingdom below it, which is Satan, Beelzebub, the beast, the false prophets, death and Hades, Dagon, Ashtaroth. So it's Satan, Beelzebub, who is the Satan chief, his chief of staff, prince of demons, then the principalities, which is the beast, false prophet, death, and Hades, then the satanic powers, also known as demons, Dagon, Ashtaroth, Chemosh, Molech, all of them. Then we have rulers of darkness, repressive demons, oppressive demons, possessive demons, then spiritual host of darkness, the great harlot and Jezebel. They're always going to use their women. And then below that, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the ring, fertility, and nature, because they're responsible for all of that, according to them. Now, of course, if we believe in God and we follow in His path, we know He's responsible for it. But if you're under that setup, then you're going to think they're responsible. I remember when I studied the organizational structure of Satan's kingdom years ago, like almost 30 years ago, when I first began my journey. The Creator showed me so much, and part of it was how our world had been infiltrated with the evil setup called the Old World Order, now known as the New World Order. The chart they refer to as Satan's organizational structure is identical to the charts I just shared, showing their setup of government, corporate, or the secret society, club, and gang. You don't have to believe in Satan, the devil, demons, or even God to see that these folks that we're allowing to lead us in this country do. They believe in this crap, and many are practicing rituals, conjuring demons in the forest, and sacrificing to their gods. So whether we believe it or not, we need to understand that and warn our offspring. They deserve to be protected. Check out the charts and the other occult, including the master-slave relationships we've gotten ourselves caught up in every freaking century, that eventually led to our ancestors being contractually enslaved, in turn leading to us being modern-day slaves to their system. Some are married into it and procreating with it. Never forget, because our next generation of babies are up next. And this is one of our faves, the music industry, plus a motorcycle club set up under the same satanic organogram. You can't barely see it, so I will definitely have to include this. But that's the music industry, and it's set up just like the ones I just showed you. Here's the bigger setup of Satan, Beelzebub, organogram, set up just like the corporates. If you want to go deeper, please use these words in the search engine and do additional research. Organogram, Satan, Demons, Kingdom. I found a few good reads under those searches. The Demonic Hierarchy by Demon Busters, a really great website, by the way. The Changing Faces of Satan from the 1500s to today on the fastcompany.com website. Legions, the occult world, gave info on the number of demons, 6,666 per legion, along with 72 princes and 7,405,926 underlings, which I feel is the breakdown of their race. The classification of demons on Wiki. The number and names of the devils by Maximilian Rudwin. Lucifer Race, religious fruitcake on Reddit. An article on the New Times website about Kimberly Daniels, a Democratic rep out of Florida who wants to mandate Bible study in the public schools. They made sure to evade to her being insane by using words such as demon buster and exorcist. I know how they do. And lastly, I came across a book titled Race of Demons, A Brief History of the Unholy Satanic Alliance, Lucifer, and the White Male. They said it, I didn't, but I understand. I always research as many avenues as humanly possible in a day so that I will have plenty of info to make unbiased conclusions. And I'll just show all the information I just gave you. The organogram, Satan and his demon kingdoms. I looked it up myself on Google. And then over legions. And it's a few pages in there. But I always study. I go into the sites. I mark them off. I compare my similarities, my syncs, my commonalities. I pray for discernment. I lead with God. I get a lot of information showing me how we're being led to the slaughter. This is Demon Buster. And this is a very good website. This guy has really studied. And he has this little no demons allowed. Very cute. Then he has a demonic hierarchy. And he studied this and he's pulled it. He didn't make it up. With his the satanic kingdom, kingdoms in the heavenlies, satanic cosmos, occult kingdom, giants. Like he has a lot of information. I have 9 pages of his information, as a matter of fact. Thrones, dominions, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual warfare. I get all this information because you always need to research what you know, what you've been taught, and then whatever you don't know and you haven't been taught. You don't have to get real deep into it. You ask God for guidance. Of course, I get real deep into it. Then we have the Changing Face of Satan that I talked about, 1500 to today. That's the book I told you. I read off a while ago. Some good information. The legions, where he's talking about the demons and legions and stuff that they're over. Classification of demons. Lucifer is pride, Beelzebub is sloth, Abandon is envy or Abaddon, Sathanas is wrath, Mammon is greed, Belphegor is gluttony, and Asmodeus is lust. I hope I'm saying them wrong because I don't want to be conjuring up demons in here, and it's more of them. It's just, this is 6 pages of demons. Lord help these folks. I've never seen nobody want to be so evil. It's ridiculous. Then I have the book I was talking about, The Number and Names of the Devils by Maximilian Rudwin. And I read all this information. I take it all in. I compare it with other information. This is Kimberly, who wanted to put Bibles back into school and God back into school. She can put that up. They're not going to let that happen, but I don't blame her. Girl, fight for God. Then the Lucifer race up under religious fruitcake. It's just a little more information that matched up with some of this other information. And lastly, a brief history of the unholy satanic alliance, Lucifer and the white male. I might get that later. But I went in and at least looked at it to see what he was talking about. Let's look at the sexual master and slave setup, which is identical to the corporate one and all others. This can get graphic, so please pray and keep the creator first. I don't want to trigger anybody, as the pagans say, and if your babies are not mature enough to discuss this yet, please do not discuss it with them. Filth can pique anyone's interest who is not on pact and mature enough to discuss. It will have a 5-year-old up to a 105-year-old question their sexuality. This stuff is gross. First, I have master morality versus slave morality. And the master is focused on qualities such as power, pride, and hierarchy. The slave is focused on qualities such as kindness, empathy, and sympathy. The master is his essence is nobility. Slave, his essence is utility and relief of suffering. Master is values qualities such as pride, wealth, glory, ambition, desire for power, popularity, self-worth, courage, reverence, and determination. The slave values the qualities such as kindness, patience, humbleness, equity, generosity, and virtues. You kind of get where this is going. Master promotes hierarchical and authoritarian principles. The slave disregards hierarchy and promotes socialist and communal principles. That's us. Master, any sign of weakness is not tolerated. Harshness and severity are respected. Slave seeks to eradicate the desire for power and encourage altruism, patience, and kindness. Master weighs actions on good or bad consequences. The slave weighs actions on good or evil intentions. Master emphasizes the use of fear on those who are below them in order to have a sense of respect for the nobles as they see them as the origin of vanity and good. And the slave sees everyone as equal, yet they are subservient for those who are above them, nobles, so they see suffering and oppression as part of their life. They believe in this. That's why I read it all off. We don't have to believe in it, but they do. So we're under this slave system. We're under this master slave system. We have to get from up under it. Basic concepts in Nietzsche's master slave morality. The slave. The slave determines his values in opposition to those of the master, that his values are determined from outside. According to Nietzsche, the slave morality is the morality of utility. Just a whole bunch of nonsense about them being masters and us being slaves. That's the in and out of it. If it's not men, and normally white men, being masters and the women being slaves, then it's the white race being masters and us being slaves. Master and slave in BDSM. Sexual slavery is a relationship in which one individual serves another in an authority exchange structured relationship. I am telling you, the more you research our past, you will see that many of our family members went off with these people to become basically their sex slaves, whether they want to say that they were their concubines or they were their wives or husbands. They went with them knowing they couldn't trust them, wanted money, wanted power, wanted whatever it is that we're marrying them for and going off with them today for. And this is what happened. And I'm not saying every white person. I'm saying the ones that enslaved their own wives and concubines and girlfriends and whatever else. I'm not going to pretend like they didn't do it. They did it, and they do it now. My slave must learn to trust me and to communicate their needs to me clearly and without hiding a single piece of information. I must also learn to trust them. This sounds just like the creeds they make for the frats and sorors, by the way. A slave sub wants to feel her master's love, to be a special girl made to feel he puts her above all others, to be taken and used for his pleasure, then held and loved in his arms afterward. You have to be really psycho to get into this. BDSM, isn't that a sex thing? This is them. It's also a respect thing, a consent thing, a love thing, honesty thing, personal expression thing, communication thing, and an acceptable thing. And I said it's also a dark, dirty thing, because that's what it is. She gave herself to him, her body, her mind, her heart, her obedience, gratitude, and devotion. She gave him all of her, and he took her in his hand and shaped her into the woman she was meant to be. This is all sub and dumb, slave and master. Property of master, loyal, obedient slave. They have t-shirts, they have all types of stuff you can buy to show that you are someone's slave or you're someone's master. I found these dirty labels and tattoos that they offer to slaves to engrave or give to their masters as representation. Just filthy. Then I found slave codes and Jim Crow laws mixed in with slave and master relationships. They don't hide it. Look and listen to this bragging, hiding in plain sight. They're sharing nowadays. So the tattoos and stuff were anywhere from I swallow to Sex toy, I'm going to try and not read the really filthy ones. Talk dirty, private property, kinky, spank me, daddy's little girl, money please, it's some really gross ones. Dirty, I need a spanking, um, hot wax, you kind of get the gist. Horny, dirty whore, oh, it gets crazy. And then we have slave codes, black codes, Jim Crow laws, I'm sorry, codifying the color line. Then this popped up. Now, all of black slavery was bad. My great grandpa loved his slaves. I wouldn't doubt if he got a few of the black ladies pregnant. I've seen a few with my last name. Anyways, they were treated like family. They had roofs over their heads, full bellies. In return, they worked. I just wanted to put this out there. Not all slave owners were bad. They really believe that. They really believe that. On the back of this, it says to be sold 1760. Yes, a boy and a girl about 11 years old. This is clearly human sex trafficking with children, pedophile, left to right. 12 years a slave reminds me of pedophiles. And then they have a lot of, just like the, where did I put them? Oh, just like these tats here, they have these tats for slaves. So it was all in the same area. I pulled it all from the same place. Negroes again. I have a large number of Negroes that must be sold. They were just sex trafficking. That's exactly what they were doing. I'm not trying to minimize slavery. It was horrible. But we never should have went off with these people. And if you do the research instead of arguing back and forth, you'll find out we went off with these people against better judgment, against what our ancestors was telling us, what our elders were telling us. We went off with them to make money, to be gay, to do all the things that we're doing now against God, the very exact things, and they ended up turning on us. And they're going to turn on you again for you that's going off with them somewhere, the ones that are evil. So we have the price of 17-year-olds up to 85-year-olds. One of them's name is Cupid, and he's 85. And the amount that they cost. Let me see. The most expensive one is the 19-year-old Andrew. Then you have a $200 reward to return 5 slaves. If you'll notice, there is an ad asking men of color to join in on bloodshed and battles with pagans. That's kind of something I'm talking about, going off with them somewhere. More than likely, they are fighting against their own family members, killing for land and possessions. Without fail, whenever black, brown women and men join pagan secret societies, i.e. the military, so-called medical fields, miseducational institutes, pagans would ritualize them, use them, and then enslave them, knowing full well that once the black browns denounced the creator and began serving pagan gods, there was no protection. And the enslaved would have to figure out how to get back on path through the blueprint, much like today. So, I have all of those different things asking for slaves, asking to help catch them. Then on the back, that's our men fighting in these wars. And whatever else we were doing, marrying them, procreating with them. Most Southern whites supported slavery. Plantation owners let small farmers without slaves use their machinery or ship produce with their larger lots. They might hire part-time workers from slaves who were hired out by their masters. They feared competition from free blacks. They feared revolts against white supremacy if slaves were free. Then slavery in the States. After American Revolution, many northern slaves were freed and the practice outlawed in several northern states. By 1804, all states above Pennsylvania had abolished slavery. Many southern states abolished the slave trade and made it easier to emancipate slaves. But by mid-1830s, the tide turned in the South away from gradual abolition. Yet they still had slaves. I don't know why our family is always so gung-ho about the North. They had slaves first. Pagan lepers had to migrate back to the South before turning on the Nignods they convinced they'd come in peace. So pagan lepers up north taught the pagan lepers in the South how to enslave our family. And in modern day, how to enslave us. This is from Niger to Nigger, Simeon and the other black apostles. by Dante Fortson, somebody that knows that we were the original ones and that we became niggers after we left Niger, according to them anyway. Human trafficking in sub-Saharan Africa. I grabbed this because basically we're the sub/slaves to their dumb slash masters. DOM dumb. Satan's kingdom is one of the dumbs. But the info put the info together that they must provide per their blood contracts and you will see exactly how they erect their setups. And I put erect on purpose. Next, I have meaning of master-slave mentality. A person who largely owns another and having no freedom of action or right to property. A person who is forced to work for another against his will. A person under the domination of another. Reminds me of dominion. Habit of influence. Once the master-slave relationship is established, the direction of control is always from the master to the slaves. Money is a new form of slavery, and we better believe it, and distinguishable from the old simply by the fact that it is impersonal, that there is no human relation between master and slave. That's Leo Tolstoy. Money is a great slave, but a horrible master. Slave, give your money to your master. And he's got his foot on his head. The whole commerce between master and slave is a perpetual exercise of the most boisterous passions, the most unremitting despotism on the one part and degrading submissions on the other. Our children see this and learn to imitate it. That's Thomas Jefferson, one of our presidents. That's that one with Leo Tolstoy. And then that one. A master chooses, a slave obeys. The satanic slave master setup continued, putting even more pieces to put our puzzle together. The word sub meaning slave and dumb meaning master go hand in hand with the info and charts I mentioned earlier. Whether in Satan's kingdom of secret societies or allegedly not, subs are slaves to dumbs. For example, sub-Saharans are slaves to kingdoms, also known as masters. The following rules apply to all sub and dumb slave and master relationships, especially sexual ones. You can see why corporate, the entertainment industry, the education system, youth programs, and even religion are inundated with sex. The ladders to climb to the top have a pervert on every other rung. When you look closely at these setups, you cannot help but see why Me Too, the porn industry, pedophiles like Nambla, and the sex trafficking rings, plus the LGBTQ agenda, are at the forefront of them. Don't automatically discount me. Please do more research. This is serious biz. Master your kingdom. Submissive. It's a sex slave, basically, but the sub is doing it willing and has to do whatever the dominant sees fit. If you really want to know more, read 50 Shades of Grey. This is all the stuff that's going to pop up under masters and slaves. The best dom and sub relationships strengthen both of you. There is no one weak and no one is strong. Oh, boo. This is a standard master dom and sub-slave dominant submissive switch relationship. They have, of course, symbolism. Of course they do. Marriage is supposed to be a union between two equals who love and support each other, not a master-slave relationship in which the man commands a docile woman. That's some feminists who got pissed off. It's called the sub or slave dom or master relationship. Have fun, hon. That was the answer back to them. Take me as I am, and I will submit to your dominance, for you are my master, therefore I will be your slave. We shall have no secrets, thus making the bond unbreakable, till the day I cease to please you so. For you are my master, and I your humble servant for all time. Ugh. Types of submissives: little brat, rope bottom, pet, masochist, service, slave, sub. You will find every one of these type of sub-slaves in the entertainment business industries. The dominant masters make certain that submissives think they are equal and in on the game as well. But anyone who has ever been a slave will tell you there's nothing equal about bowing down to a person ruling you by force. Then I have, we are modern day slaves to the system, Republicans versus Democrats, Cowboys versus Indians, Yankees versus Brits, Crips versus Bloods, same old, same old. Everybody is a part of that slave master system if you are going down that road. These are consensual real slavery contracts between a slave and his master. And they're just asking for names. It provides an agreement defining the relationship and interaction, which is what many of our ancestors signed. There's no way they didn't have them sign blood contracts. We just don't hear about it. This is from the entertainment industry. They're basically the same type of contracts. Blood contract is a blood contract. Here are a few pics I found on the web bragging about the slave and master's dynamic over the centuries. Whether in the BCs in Egypt or the ABs in corporate America, the setup of sub/slave obeying dumb/master has never changed. We simply never caught on as a whole. Plus, pagans destroyed evidence, switched history around, and blackmailed our lost, lying ancestors who sold their souls to them. So there's that. And it's just going to be pictures of niggas and pagans in their submissive, dumb relationships. And it's also white people, on white people. Different pictures of slaves. They popped up. That's why I have them. Slaves and masters. And most of them are with whips. And if you look at the master slave relationship, the sexual one, whips and all of that is involved in that too. That's no coincidence. Winner takes all. These are gay slaves and masters. And then they make a joke here about Jesus, that it's a white Jesus. So then there's cartoons with the master and slaves, where the Asians are getting in on it. And then they have at the bottom a black overseer or sellout that's helping whoop another black slave. That was the way that you got in good with your master. The first slave owner in America was not only a black man, he went to court and demanded it. In 1654, it was time for Anthony to release John Casar, a black indentured servant. Instead, Anthony told Casar he was extending his time. They wish that a nigger was the first person to enslave somebody. But there were black masters, just like there are today. Different cartoons, different things showing black slaves. Well, we've all seen these pictures. These just popped up while I was doing this research, so I put them with this. It's relevant to me. Warning, brothers and sisters, gross filth follows. I will X out as much as possible. Cover the baby's eyes and don't allow them to look it up. These disgusting images, listen to this, were right on Google when I typed sex, slave, and master in the Google engine. These folks are sent from the depths of Hades. I stand on it. That means that I saw poops and toots and tits all over the page when I typed in those words. Nothing was covering them up. No black bars. It was just filth. I had to go back in with a black marker and exit out. But I went ahead and copied this because it has different keywords that it lets you know what these sex slave relationships are about as far as our ancestors are concerned. But extreme masters, dirty mistresses, I saw a lot of concubines that were enslaved. A lot that went off with their white boyfriend or husband or whatever you're supposed to be, and before they knew it, they were being tortured and put in those positions. And that goes for black men too, because a lot of them were gay, going off with these white men like they do now. That's what's going on with a lot of our black guys in the neighborhoods that are supposed to be in gangs. They are going off with these gay, rich white men, and they're paying for it. Whether they end up killing somebody and going to jail or whether they get killed, they're paying for it. Corporate domination using sub-slaves. That's the corporate end of it. Like, I didn't find any part of their setups that they weren't pushing the sex agenda. They know exactly what they're doing to keep us under their foot, and we need to know as well, brothers and sisters. This here says, how can a slave and his master both worship the same God? Both of them expect their prayers to be answered by this very same God. It really says then both of them expect their prayers to be answered by this very same God. That's John Henry Clark. And I said, think about it, because I agree with him. This is a sticky subject I'm taking on because unlike all of the beautiful, enlightened, positive moves we made as a people, some of us have also contributed to some sick, dark, evil setups in society. Many of the powerful men and women that we look up to and write our book reports about were and are in cahoots with these devils. Many of our brothers and sisters led the charge, fought the battles, only to give in to the very people they allegedly started out fighting against. They share our plan / our blueprint. They discuss our genetic makeup, what makes us strong, what makes us tick, what our weaknesses are. Many take the bribes, fam. That is why so many are sitting lofty underneath the pagan leper and Satan's footstool. I have found this to be true thousands of times over. Usually when nignods join any secret society, club, or gang, included that pagans invent to squeeze all type of info out of a nigga. From the youth clubs like the Boys and Girls Clubs or Boy and Girl Scouts to the frats and sorors to the Crips and Bloods, whenever we have to make oaths and creeds and be sex slaves reporting in while sitting around a coven eating and thinking we are really doing something grand, get ready for the beans to be spilled. Pagans are so predictable. Their agenda and setup has never changed. From the ancient times when the chosen tribes were turning on one another for a camel, to the 60s when they did it for a Cadillac, right on up till today when they're doing it for a check. Too many black and brown folks are tapping into that marked bloodline and turning on the original fam, giving head, blabbing, and bobbing. I noticed the sinks and commonalities regarding slavery when I began researching narratives. Every narrative was the same. A black brown ancestor admitting they went off with their master and missus. As I watched movies and read books, I began noticing many of them were admitting that they were allegedly giving up sex willingly. We decided they were being raped because we were told they were enslaved. Yes, they were enslaved after the fact, but every slave that I researched, studied, and prayed for discernment on had willingly followed behind or entered into a relationship with a pagan first. They had ignored all the warnings, told their black and brown fam to get bent, and went with this stranger, trusting them to keep their word of coming in peace. Keeping its word that it would pay what it said it would pay, do what it said it would do. Our enslaved ancestors thought they could go against the blueprint, be gay, enter into harems and polyamorous relationships, procreate with the first group of brats who turned on the Creator hard in that magnificent garden. They thought they could fight their wars, many times against their own people, and there would be no consequences. That's what they thought, identical to what many of us think today. Not much has changed, and I'm tackling. I am calling folks to the table before our children continue to listen to this dribble, walking around thinking they can do whatever they want and there will be no consequences, even though the Creator clearly sent word and testimony stating there will be. He didn't say he would put curses on our heads. He simply showed us certain actions couldn't be done without certain reactions following. You cannot stick your hand in fire and not feel heat. You may even get burnt. Pagans call it signs. Our Creator calls them consequences, curses. I have a few consequences to share. Please take my info and research your own, so I won't be another Kanye. But I agree with him. And like he said, our ancestors nor our tribes today and in the future have to be enslaved. As our Creator said when he gave free will, it is a choice. I have no doubt that many of us sold our souls to the devils for peanuts, more than likely thinking the blood contract would be exactly whatever was agreed upon. And when it wasn't, plus they turned on us, demanding other filth and violence be committed, folks wanted out. That's not how their blood contracts work. You have to search for those stipulations if you are stupid enough to sign one. That goes for every contract their legal teams have drawn up over these last 7,000 plus years, give or take 1,000. Pull all and any information our Creator has left behind, the devil has left behind, our ancestors have left behind, or even what they have left behind, and dissect it, brothers and sisters. Pull all and any information our Creator has left behind, the devil has left behind, our ancestors have left behind, or even what they haven't. And dissect it, brothers and sisters. Check the timelines, the testimonies, the diaries, and biographies. I am going to use this particular narrative for my first example regarding sinks in the slave/master relationships. It is shared by an alleged slave named Aunt Lucy, who worked for Mr. Charlie and Mrs. Ann. Plus, she had to deal with Mr. Cassidy, an owner of an alleged finishing school affiliated with a hotel that somehow became a part of the school. A school like the schools Oprah and other billionaires and millionaires invest in, and we later hear about abuse and all types of shiesty evil going on. Now, the reason that I'm using this school for this research part of my podcast is because I want to show you guys how the Creator leads me to similarities, syncs, and commonalities whenever I am putting two and two together. Always getting four. Basically, this slave is divulging that she worked for this Mrs. Ann Garner and Master Charlie, and during that time she lost 8 dang babies. Now, I know health was supposedly poor back then, and blacks were said to be mistreated. But whenever I dig around in these setups, the female slaves freely and happily become the master's concubine. No disrespect. This is all from the heart in their history books and testimonies. Other names for being side pieces are paramour, prostitute, courtesan, kept woman, mistress, harem, and doxy. Look any of those up and you will see how many of our people were those certain things I just named. This may explain why she possibly had 8 children as sacrifices and only one that survived. The one that survived was named Lafayette, and Aunt Lucy went out of her way to say she wished he wouldn't have lived either, for no other reason than he fell off a horse and could barely speak. As a mama, I call a flag on the plate. And I don't want to hear how she didn't know better and was barely an adult because of her mental capabilities. If she could make the same decision to work for pagans and possibly hang around as a concubine, she could have made the human choice to not slave for pagans, stay on path, and raise her 9 children. All slave narratives I've researched put me in the mind of the help. One of the first movies that I noticed, we were making same choices to work for racists. Free will is what they call it here in Stolen America. Come to find out, our ancestors did not have to work for races no more than we have to today. Yet folks do it, then find themselves pooping in pies. I will never forgive Octavia fully for that filth. Quit, dag nabbit. Never let a mofo make you stoop to that level. Literally. Anyways, she ends up working at the National Park Seminary School Mr. Cassidy ran. Now, here's where the things really began coming together. I researched the school, and it was a sorority, meaning secret society, that girls were put up at and allowed to do what young girls and women are allowed to do at these apartments, townhomes, and rooms. Word on the street is sex trafficking is always involved, allegedly. I have receipts of rich folks buying these type of setups and receipts of a few folks who have come up dead allegedly selling cat and butt under the radar, as well as drugs being trafficked. Yet folks lie, get rid of evidence and witnesses, while pretending as if they don't know what's going on. The Tawana Brawley case, the Black Babies in Georgia in the 80s, the Bolton Jean case, Maya Makano, all murmurs of sex and drug trafficking. But folks swept it under the rug, and law enforcement made certain of it. They will make me retract what I'm saying, but I said allegedly as I pull my info I put together on the cases. Back to the sinks and commonalities. In the slave narrative, I'll include the first tragic evil that occurred in 1892 on 1733 Q Street Northwest. This is where the school was. This is where the hotel was. The designer of the houses on Q Street had a brother who murdered his wife and her brother in one of the houses. After they found him guilty, they hanged him. All hangings I've researched are directly related to occult rituals. I am so serious, including black ones. And if you will notice, whenever pagans bombard their way into our world, tricking our ancestors out of more land than promised on the blood contract, they design and build up a lot of pagan occult architecture. They indulge in a lot of sexual debauchery, drugs, and alcohol abuse. Then the murders follow. Usually with a blurb about church or how much the victim believed in God. It never fails. And sellouts, also known as slaves, are always caught up in the mix, just like today. What helped me put these lies on the table and begin making sense out of faux history is the fact that evil only begets evil. So if evil is involved, it is involved through and through. And no one can make me believe otherwise, being that I researched thousands of cases myself. This one included. So the sinks were rich pagans buying folks through blood contracts who later were called slaves, a bunch of evil involved, and then a faux history sold to us, the future lineages, so we won't ever put the pick in focus and realize most of us are basically making the same evil choices as modern day slaves and are about to pass the curse forward. This is an old plantation book, How We Lived in Great Houses and Cabins Before the War, P. Tennyson Neely Company, by James Battle. This is Poems in Slavery, Black Abolitionist Poets and Longfellow's Imperfect Allyship. On the back is an African king, extremities worn, dust soiled, some spotting, scattering of pinholes in the upper left corner, red Morocco label on the upper cover. Basically, all of these books and paperwork that I pulled for this, it shows that there's some commonality, some sync in slavery. And basically, these masters, these pagans, knowing how we really were enslaved, what really happened, a slave's life when people were property. They're bragging on one hand and knowing what's up on the other. And so when they're calling us heathens and talking about the lies that our ancestors have told, they're saying that because they know that there's more to this story than we have found out, that we've researched and looked up. So this is the narrative project by Lucy, Miss Lucy, Aunt Lucy. She has no defect in hearing. Following are some questions and her answers. Lucy, did you belong to the Carols before the war? No, sir, I didn't live around here then. No, sir, I didn't live around here then. I put everything in quotes. I mean, in what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my goodness, I put everything over to the side that didn't sound like it made sense. I was born on debate. How old are you? Don't know, sir. Miss Ann, she had it written down in her book, but she said I was too much trouble for her to always looking it up. And then they talk about her son Lafayette and how she belonged to this woman. What kind of work did you do? She sent me to picking up feathers around the yard. She had a powerful lot of geese. First thing I thought about was witches and familiars and the way that they break those chicken necks and stuff. Then when I got a little bigger, she had me set the table. I was just a little gal then. She said she was going to make a nurse out of her. Long story short here. This goes on. It's the whole narrative is here. Long story short, she ends up working at that school. She ends up working here. And she don't tell what she did at the school. But the school, when I dissected it, it basically young girls being primed and primped to service older elite men. First off, I noticed all of the occult that's involved. The ancient Greek and Roman buildings used for performances of music and poetry, which they never have talent as a rule. But those books I showed you, those are poetry books. All of this goes hand in hand. The halls are donated. I made sure to go back because it was donated by a patronage, a clan, and I went back and put the definition. A patronage is a person or organization paying for the talent and the privilege of a slave. And then I put I mean sub. Same person. They have the power to confer favors once they give support or protection. I need to add, I was digging around in everybody's history. I found a very interesting tidbit that fit in with the slave master dynamic. The wars and colonizing, pagans pushing their OWO, NWO setups and agendas. Per a great majority of their references, pagans refer to these time frames and wars as theaters. Example, World War I and II are called the theaters of war on many websites. I gave some of the websites, historynet.com, vision.org, and they refer to the people involved as actors. I don't know why we haven't called them on this. Well, I guess I have. Many times in many of my books. It's like when I found out they were scripting reality television, reshooting a scene that was allegedly happening in real time. Nothing is ever as it seems with them. Most have been proven to be big-time liars thus far. I implore you, fam, please check out everything. Because when I saw that the patrons were involved with this fairy tale land that these sorors were obviously providing services from, and slaves were involved as well, I put my little thinking cap on and remembered all of the information I've researched on this subject. Putting two and two together, you get what? Four. Hordes of patrons paid gay boys, also known as rent boys, as well as young girls to entertain them, while they pushed their satanic agenda through the arts or whatever avenue they used during that particular era to spread their agenda and ideas and such. Just for shots and goggles, I found my family name in the Wild West Theater. that Wild Bill Hickok, Cody Buffalo Bill, and the other guys were initiated into. They all made it into the history books by paid storytellers who were often high, drunk, or both. Wild Bill was a driver for Russell Majors and Waddell. They warred over a frightening and Stagecoach line until one person was standing. The business later became American Express Stagecoach, which I worked for. Thank you very much. They made us wear badges pushing the gay agenda, and that, among other reasons, is why I quit and moved back home. As I studied the Wild Wild West, I found out just how ruthless and evil most of those guys were. During a dispute with a guy named David McClanus over the Stagecoach, Bill allegedly killed him in cold blood. I continued to dig around trying to stomach the violence and basically found that my ancestors sold their souls to pagans. Out of all the fascinating tales and shocking plot twists, that was the bottom line. So, anyway, this National Park Seminary that these girls were at were surrounded by the chapter houses, Kappa Delta Phi, Zeta Eta Theta, and Alpha Epsilon Pi, all in one coven together. And it never fails. Anytime I'm coming across any type of history, it's going to be some frats and some sorors involved. It never fails. The Vintage Traveler, also showing the National Park Seminary School for Girls. This is a breakdown of their information. And this is where the sinks and commonalities come in for this place that the slave worked at. And after digging around, it seems like girls were being sold. They were teaching these girls certain things. Like, all signs point to like a witch's coven. In 1890, a real estate syndicate, and real estate is always involved when sex trafficking and any other type of trafficking is involved, began the development of Forest Glen. These are key words. They planned a community for government workers, a large rambling hotel. It was for summer use. At some point it failed, and then it was given to the girls. They opened the school, and it was an educational institution, but it was envisioned to be something more. They don't say what the more was. It was named National Park, which anytime white people come in, pagans, lepers, whatever you want to call them, whenever they come into our lands and they come in peace, the first thing they're going to want to set up is schools, parks, missions, and the government. They're going to always want to set those things up first. And hospitals. I dare not forget hospitals. That's how they get in. And it just sounds like to me they've refined these girls. They made these girls civil. They shaved them down. They taught them how to make us think that they were okay. And in the meantime, we're listening to these slaves who sound like, they were born in the woods, but we were the civilized ones. So this is what makes my antennas go up about all of this. But the women were they were wealthy girls. They were day students. They came to this finishing school. The etiquette was very strict. They were of high society. They allegedly were taught how to dress, how to eat, how to drink. They were taken to churches on Sunday. They loved to include that. There was a sanitarium nearby the chapel. Now, these are all, like I said, these are key words. It tells me a little bit about what was going on in this place. Then they discuss all of the sororities. Chi Omicron Pi, and isn't that Omicron some part of COVID? It was called the mouse hole where they met. Second sorority. Let's see, who else do they have? I said Kappa Zeta, Kappa Delta Phi, Theta and Delta, Chi Psi Epsilon. They had all of these different sororities. They had a sorority mother who was responsible for teaching the girls and guiding their activities. Like I said, it sounds like a coven. Sounds like Chris and her coven of Kardashians. Everything was done in secret. They weren't to share a bunch of information. They had an American bungalow, a Dutch windmill, a Swiss chalet, an English castle, and a Japanese pagoda. along with a gatehouse. That means something, best believe. They were taught how to have polite conversation, club life, how to be friendly with the fraternity members. Um, they had to be chaperoned, and many of them tried to sneak out. Um, they talk about the different houses, the Odeon, where they try to showcase their talent, which they probably didn't have any. Then this Halloween party, this caught my eye. It was scheduled after dark. They put that verbatim. All the girls gathered in front of the main building. They walked down paths through wooded areas to the Glen. Along the way were sights to send excited chills through young breasts. They put that. Skeletons in grottos, bodies hanging from trees, and lighted jack-o'-lanterns sitting on rocks or tree stumps. There were witches stirring evil potions under tall trees bathed in weird lights. Masked highwaymen would spring out unexpectedly from dark corners. Many shrieks and much laughter um, would go on until the party ended with refreshments being served. Survive to all who survived the terrors of the trail. Now, of course, that's not a big deal to us right now. We have Lil Nas X riding Satan, so that's not a big deal. But if you are following your path, what's fun about bodies hanging from trees and witches stirring evil potions? Clearly, this was something, and this was back in the day, 1800s, 1900s. Clearly, something was going on that was not of God. So this is just, it goes on and on, tells more about their pagan rites, their rituals that they did at the school, how much it cost. This was also interesting. The catalog states that the acquisition of soul power or moral training is a special feature of the school. The expanding soul needs training in a more specific, systematic, and practical form than we have ever seen employed. What the? So I'm gonna dig around a little bit more about it with that because I'm nosy and I want to know what these schools were about. I feel like they were putting they were easing their way onto our lands and they were teaching not only their young girls how to follow a cult, how to be witches, how to be whatever, as well as civilizing them. They were calling our children out too to come and be a part of it. And even if we have a slave like Aunt Lucy who allegedly wasn't part of the sororities, she was part of the school. She was doing something. She didn't have any business at that school. Later, the army bought it out. It turned into a battlement, and then directly after it, they started renting it out as a haunted house. So there were deaths there. There was all types of seedy stuff going on. There's the woods that you can go to and you can conjure up demons and stuff. And I did all of this just because you have to research. You have to put all of this together. And when I saw that slave narrative and I saw this Miss Lucy talking about she lost 8 children and she worked for these people, I said, this sounds a little bit too close for comfort. Sounds like these slaves that, allegedly they were beaten and taken off and stuff, but they actually went willingly and then they helped propagate all of this stuff. And also, I found out at that school they taught them about crime and vices. It wasn't a school where you were learning English and math, and they were teaching them about dark stuff. I mean, who needs to learn about crime and vices in the 1800s and you're a girl? Then I started putting things in Google search like seminary schools and slavery to see what would pop up. And all of these different seminary schools popped up and different people that were contributing, patrons and stuff that contribute to these schools. Their ballrooms. Ballrooms is always a big deal because in the occult they have these costume balls, these masquerade balls, all of this stuff that has to do with their pagan upbringing and their culture. It has nothing to do with God. I also put in seminary schools and prostitution, and I had a lot of different men, not just women, men also, a bunch of schools and information that popped up. Well, I started a new day, so I'm a little hoarse, but I'm going to try and finish this second podcast up so I can start my third one. Basically, what I was saying was the seminaries and these church groups and missions that are led by pagans, they're all in cahoots together with the old school slavery, any type of trafficking, drug trafficking, sex trafficking. Many of them are involved. So I'm not going to say everybody, but many of these different schools and different platforms were involved. This information here is about slavery justice in New Brunswick Theological Seminary. I pulled this because it had some sort of sync and commonality with the other school that I just spoke of, that Aunt Lucy worked at. So this is the article, and on the back, again, it has different learning tools like the books of poetry and different things like that that they use as commonalities within that time frame to show in their own circles what was going on. We don't know. We have to research it. So my next information is, why did so many white folks support slavery? Why did so many sellouts assist them with the setup? Basically, it was for a large body count for Satan's agenda using evil, drugs, and alcohol. Plus, they wanted the land, eminent domain. And Satan promised that. They wanted the material possessions and the sexual debauchery because that's just a good time. They wanted what they wanted. And sellouts did too. Many of us are the same. Many of us are sellouts and don't even realize it. We won't ever admit it. Many don't understand that what we do in the past and present leads to the consequences in the future. Our actions today will affect our children's reactions in the future. Dabbling in the dark, conjuring dead relatives and demons, or participating in orgies, pedophilia, any type of sex trafficking while pushing the LGBTQT agenda, maybe joining gangs or secret societies may seem your business, your choice. Therefore, everybody out here needs to butt out and a fight come with it. But the real deal is our children can be affected by those actions. We are on this earth together, and anybody can get it and be touched, whether good or bad. If it's bad, the Creator may move. Our babies may decide to go a little further than we did with Satan. There could be no protection around. Dark may be all that surrounds him or her. They may decide to rape a 5-year-old through their choice of sexual debauchery. They may decide to put a gun to someone's head and pull the trigger through their gang ties. They may decide to tell you to F yourself when they conjure your dead body during a seance with a sorority. This is just other information about how many Christians supported slavery that we now believe have changed. Again, Christianity, that's a whole nother ballpark. So that's something we need to be researching, because just the fact that Christ is at the beginning of that should tell us that it was not for us, even though the root of word came from God passing it down to our people. Dark has no lines in the sand, which is why our Creator asked us to stay out of it. Many elite pagans pushing the current agenda based off the old one are fully aware of that. That is why they support this system. That is why they support dark and evil. This is a Wikipedia article about old school, new school controversy. And they always have the old versus the new, the north versus the south, the blue versus the red. The old school, new school controversy was a schism of the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, which took place in 1837 and lasted for 20 years. I pulled it because that's around the time that these seminary schools were opening, that these people were settling in thanks to our sellout relatives, and they were starting to actually push their culture, not so much picking up ours. We thought they were picking up ours and becoming civilized. They were pushing the pagan, satanic culture, and that's what they do up until today. Eminent domain. I just included this because I wanted us to remember that this refers to the power of the government to take private property and convert it into public use. So again, when they come in and they take our land, they take our possessions, of course, they build up their own culture, and we're now accepting a lot of dark, a lot of pagan occult, allowing them to do so. There are thousands, nay millions of graphs and charts showing all types of violence and deaths in every category, races, ages, sexes, with one little teeny weeny bitty chart showing deaths decreasing. Praise God if it's true. The bottom line, though, is that we know there are too many of us dying when we should be living to 120 as the Creator promised. We have to go to funerals every other day. We have to listen to people high cap about they never would have thought or why God, when the alleged victim was a killer or trafficker or disrespecting everybody. Per the trash racist talk and the stats they put out, I know they know what's up as well. They know as long as we are on path, sticking to the blueprint and being positive, their game plan is dead. Dead their game plan, brothers and sisters, for the sake of our babies. I am begging. Everything I am showing is because they're set up, passed down by the satanic gods and their helpers, was sent here from away from the Creator's promise and His creations to destroy us. Something and somebody wants us and our babies and our future generations miserable, then dead by any means necessary. I don't like that. Oh, here's a chart. I need to show this chart. I don't know if the stats are completely on point because they lie a lot, but I do know they're watching and they've already decided 100 out of 100,000 of my brothers will be killed by police during your lives. You can see it up there at the top. So I am saying that all of this is planned, and it's been planned for hundreds of years, thousands of years, to get us out of here. Then I have charts where they say that we're most likely to be killed by police 3 times more likely, which we know because of all of the Black Lives Matter stuff. 30% of black victims were unarmed in 2015 compared to the 19% of white victims who were shot. So that means that they are toting guns around here and they're not having a problem, but we are. Which doesn't mean do as they do. We need to get back on path. Despite declines, minorities are more likely than whites to be fatally shot while unarmed. And they're showing deaths per 10 million population. We're at 30.1%. Hispanics at 10.7, whites are at 7.3, other is at 5.7. And then there's the violence decreasing little chart I talked about. Deaths per 100,000, and it doesn't show color, but it does show female victims are decreasing as well as male victims. So that could even be just white people. On the back, there's an archaeological and ethnographic evidence of violence since the 1300 ADs, and it hasn't gotten any better, of course, because as far as I'm concerned, again, that's the purpose, to get as many body counts as they can, serving whoever they believe in. We call him Satan, some of us just call him the dark, some of them don't call him anything at all. But the bottom line is we're dying here in America and other places following behind their culture and their blueprint. So we have another one in the 1500s, but both of them basically just show us declining in depth in different ways that we're doing so, as I showed on the other charts. So I may include that as well. I mean, nothing has changed, and nothing is new under the sun. We have been slaves, sex slaves for some, to these maniacs, also known as our alleged masters, since the dawn of sin. We have been lied to by them and our sellout ancestors about how and why we are in the dark back then and now, and we are still being lied to. We have overseers who are helping with Satan's agenda. They are being paid and don't mind selling their souls on the plantations and reservations. Therefore, they will continue to sell us out and down the river. I can't say I completely blame their funky asses. It is our job to figure out what our family went through and how to avoid it or keep it going. As always, I'm going to do my part. So let's talk about these sellouts and overseers, both male and female, brown and white, adults, and sometimes children, remembering to pray for discernment and protection while doing the right thing. Top overseers and sellouts paid and used to keep nignogs following the OWO-NWO agenda. In the BCs, it was Abraham and Noah's wives and daughters, Joseph's brothers who sold him, Judas Iscariot, who may have been a sellout in the early ADs, but probably was born in the BCs. Pimps, prostitutes, harlots, gay folks, pedophiles, polygamists, basically anyone that's helping the fam get off path and then playing it forward. In the ADs, it's presidents of all secret societies, from the Cub Scouts to the frat/sorors to the presidency. There is no way possible that the presidents of these societies and clubs can help with the agenda at that level and not know what is being done. These folks either know what's up and turn away, or they go through with the agenda. I don't find too many turning away. Elite pagan lepers, significant others, and many times their offspring are also helping. Their assistants, elite pagan assistants and helpers, significant others, and many times their offspring are helping. Top tier government officials in every branch of the government, federal, state, and local. Top millionaires and billionaires. They know what it takes to keep the masses indoctrinated and enslaved, and they are going along with it. Many entertainers, medical professionals, and educators. I'll give a quick breakdown as to why I know this to be true. Entertainers, there is an agenda in the entertainment arena to get all of the creators' creations to follow the dark and stay off path. Check it out. Our singers and the majority are pushing Satanism, sexual debauchery, the LGBTQ agenda, greed, and all other manners of sin. It's getting worse as I type this. Dave Chappelle is one of the few that went up against them, and he pushes all type of mess against the creator in his act. Medical professionals. The entire medical setup is a ripoff of our ancestral blessings. The pagan lepers that our family sold cures to, know it. There are very simple ways to stay healthy. Our Creator made certain of it. He makes no mistakes, nor kicks up confusion. If we follow the blueprint, we remain healthy. When we go against it, we are fair game to the people who know the cures and how to spread disease. As smart as doctors and nurses are supposed to be, you don't think they know that? Educators, ditto. As far as being educated and knowing what elite pagan lepers are up to, they know. But allow me to leave this deeper example. White folks told black folks they can't teach their children about the trauma, violence, and injustices they put our family through, labeling it critical race theory. And black teachers are going along with it. Not only did they go along with it, not one is on a picket line. Not one walked out or middle finger in the face that I know of. That's the reason my babies are homeschooled now. They will know their history by any means necessary. Other overseers and sellouts. Anybody assisting with drug and sex trafficking in our neighborhoods. Anybody physically, mentally, sexually abusing our children. Anybody killing our fam out of violence and or insurance policies. Anybody disrespecting our elders. Anybody pushing the LGBTQ agenda against the Creator's proven positive blueprint. I'm sure I've missed a few overseers and sellouts, but you can tell them by their intentions. They are causing more conflict and drama versus helping us survive and replenish this earth. They are helping to rid the earth of the chosen race. Now, this is the philosophy they use on their plantations and reservations, also known as old school and modern day, to get us to turn from our Creator and then on one another. They have studied us to death. We are their science experiment. They know that we are the chosen children, protected by the Creator. They know as long as we believe we can sin and commit abominations and blame our poor conditions and the color of our skin on the outcomes, they can control our world and essentially become our God, our saviors. They also know a group of us will figure this out, and instead of seeing the entire pig, we'll be so pissed off that we will denounce our Creator and the blueprint that He's passed down to us through a covenant. We no longer will be completely protected from Satan and their setup, and they can have their way with us. They know it because they have been running game for thousands of years per their timelines, per our testimonies, by word of mouth. We can figure out the game and annihilate it. We can get back on path, which is simply a matter of choosing positive actions, also known as doing the right thing. We can research what worked for our fam when they were chilling in the garden and being blessed. Because there was a time when we had morals and were happy and healthy with no negativity around. Don't believe the hype. Certain pagans and sellouts have spread this. Find the path, get back to the blueprint, and remember we can never serve two masters, nor evil and good at the same time. Which brings me to an even deeper breakdown of their plantations and reservations. I'm going to show a clear picture of how and why we remain stuck in the same scenario with their foot on our necks. I'll start with their old school plantations versus their modern day plantations, also known as planned ways to keep us corralled and controlled since the BC era, forward, right on up and through this current 2000s. They gain our trust. We come in peace. Then they load us up on their identical, exact same mind control propaganda and lies disguised as education in different forms depending on the generation. The end result is to dummy us down, get rid of our beliefs in the Creator's blueprint, and or any signs of our old school info from our ancestors that worked positively for us. Their setup, their agenda, their methods, and their graphs and hierarchies are the same and haven't changed in the last 7,000 years, give or take 1,000, depending on how they feel. They haven't changed because it is all working in their favor. Check this: plantation living. As I said, these people, our beloved ancestors, were promised riches, material possessions, and high positions to do dirt against the blueprint. And once they signed those blood contracts and did the first deed, they did become enslaved to pagan lepers. Whether a slave, an overseer, or a spouse, everyone on the plantation was indebted to white boys and their master Satan. Again, through blood contracts. Think of resumes, applications, fraternities, and sorors, paperwork through the military, and anything we're signing our names to in return for whatever they're offering in their secret societies. Reservation living. Ditto for the first black, native slash indigenous folks who made pacts and promises, plus procreated with pagan lepers and bore what pagans refer to as Indians. Those mixed children who pagans put in the history books as the first nations in the Americas were put there for two reasons. Firstly, they want to get rid of us. Second, they used the mixed tribes against our black ancestors, their blood relatives, to war with, steal land and possessions that pagans later took when they killed off our black and mixed lineages. And everybody involved was at fault because everybody was going against the blueprint, playing in the dark, practicing rituals that pagan lepers taught everyone to practice, which is why they were kicked out of the garden the first time around. Same as today, same as yesterday, nothing new under the sun. So after this plantation and reservation living in the BCs and early ADs, I'm going to move on to our current setups. The ADs, where one more again, nothing's changed. We have the New World Order, also known as NWO. Country living, pagans settled in. They convinced the chosen tribes that they were better people. They had no more tricks up their sleeves. That's where these finishing schools and such come in. They had become civilized and would get along. Then they proceeded to make weapons in war while drawing up contracts left to right and stealing as much land, eminent domain, as possible. And our possessions as possible. Same stank, different orifice. Every freaking blood contract and a stipulation in it. Which is what our ancestors I'm sorry. Let me go back. New World Order. New World Order, also known as NWO. Country living. Pagans settled in. They convinced the chosen tribes that they were better people. They had no more tricks up their sleeve. That's where these schools, like I've discussed, come into play. These finishing schools. They had become civilized and would get along. Then they proceeded to make weapons and war while drawing up contracts left to right and stealing as much land and as many possessions as humanly possible. Same stank, different orifice. Every freaking blood contract had a stipulation in it, which is what our ancestors get because it was not their land and possessions to give away. Make me sick. With all due respect, it's so indicative of today. I get nauseous seeing lost blacks boot over for pagans. Again, I'm like, do we ever learn? City living. It is the last prototype they've used to keep us corralled and controlled. It's what I call modern day plantation living. We are basically living in a financial slavery market, focusing on the gross national product, which leads to being overworked, underpaid, massive unemployment, inflation, and growth trade to keep up the facade that we are living in a democratic society. However, the real focus is only on that GDP and how much resource, material, and money is being dangled in front of us as hard-headed children are being worked into an early grave. Ain't. Now what I'm going to do is go over to my chart and discuss a little setup there that will mirror the reservation and plantation living and the country living and the city living. So hold on for me just one moment. Okay, this is the chart that I made that has the breakdown of the information I just talked about. So I'm just going to go over this real quick and then get back to the other information. In the beginning, the Creator's blueprint and word was passed down by word of mouth by the Creator into our ancestors for free. Unfortunately, it was later sold and told to shiesty evil exile forces, who then wrote it down, added to it, and subtracted from it, against the creator's warnings, not to mention resold it, making billions. Though word has been monkeyed with, through prayer, discernment, and testimony, the tribes can still figure out what was being warned of and what our blessings are. Nothing has changed. The Creator's word remains the same, no matter how much man changes it. From our melanated beginnings in the garden, paradise, Pangea, Gondwana land, also known as the motherland, until the split and renaming to Africa, including the Middle East, Asia, including India and Lower Russia / Australia, including the surrounding islands / South America and Lower North America, plus Lower Europe, some say Antarctica as well. We have been chosen to live a blessed life on a beautiful mass of land, free of evil, happy, healthy, procreating, and prosperous. Leaving Upper Europe, including Greenland and other below zero islands, plus the Caucasus Mountains / Upper North America and perhaps Upper Antarctica, to the exiled pagan leper cursed bloodline. But we keep getting our wires crossed, so I researched why. Identical to my journey, anyone can research Word, all other compiled data / info, articles, maps, and testimonies from the BCs to the ADs to verify any info our ancestors, pagan lepers, or I have researched and compiled. I have plenty of researched info, such as the breakdown of the tribes from the beginning of BCs, leading to the diasporas and migrations, from word of mouth, Quranically, biblically, and by the Torah, also known as our history, not to mention secularly, also known as pagan leper history. I have the breakdown of our bloodlines, the original tribes versus the marked ones. I have compiled facts concerning how leprosy, also known as the curse of white pink skin, occurred not only through word, but through pagan scientific explanations. I have the breakdown of the old world agenda and how it was used to get back at the Creator and His creations by using dark, satanic, pagan occult, rife with evil. I have the witches and warlocks' missions and intentions of how they were hell bent on spreading their ways to the tribes, the Creator's original children. I have the testimonies and admissions of the sellouts who have assisted with the takeover and destruction of those who refuse to convert to satanic, pagan occult beliefs and or give in. I have every major and some minor wars listed and the sensible sound reasons behind them. Spoiler alert, there isn't one. Not one. What don't I have? For the most part, anything our creator and ancestors left for our knowledge and anything pagan lepers have bragged about, I have something noted somewhere. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, but better than one, and I'm pretty darn happy about that. So right here, I have a list of the breakdown actually of the information I talked about earlier. It's ancient living, which led to plantation living, which led to reservation living, and vice versa, which is under old school, old world order, OWO. Then we have the new school, new world order, NWO, which was country living, which they decimated and took over. Then we moved on to city living under these metropolises, which are, to me, modern day plantations. So this is the breakdown of a secret society subversive group. This guy did his himself, and this is on many sites. You can look this up anywhere on the internet. Google it. Under the NWO agenda, we have banking, religious, secret society, and royal elite. Then we have global companies and big Wall Street investors. Then we have top level advisors and politicians. Under that is top military and intelligence agencies. Then UN, EU, UN presidents and prime ministers. Government funded scientists, food, drugs, and healthcare industries under the presidents and prime ministers. Then we have corporate and government owned news media. Under that is education system, entertainment industry, and religious dogma. Then at the very bottom is everybody else who are the worker ants of the world. And I totally agree with him. I did my own little pyramid living under the secret society shiz, also known as Same Old. I have my pyramid with Satan, demons in the dark listed, and under that would be the marked elite leper pagans who are in charge. Then under them would be their offspring and sellouts, the ones that can pass. Under them would be sellouts, mixed, quads, octos, etc. Then under there would be semi-sellouts, which would be their offspring with pagans. And at the very bottom in the minds of pagan lepers especially are the offspring of pure black children of God. So that was my little impromptu pyramid. Next, I listed movies that were based off of their New World Order agenda. And these are all telling of what they intend to do, who they think we are. Confessions and examples and entertainment of future New World Order city living. Sorry to Bother You, The Matrix, The Fifth Element, 1968, Alien, District 9, Blade Runner, The Hunger Games, V for Vendetta, Minority Report, The Terminator, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which I never watched, and so on and so forth. These are the top picks for my research. But put futuristic dictator movies in the Google search engine and you'll get a gander at the 50,000 others that pagans have been so generous to share with the world. Tips to share on the plantation/reservations. All of the economy crops that played a part in our enslavement were bad for our health to begin with. Had we not been sucking down white sugar in the 1500s, tobacco in the 1600s, or coffee in the 1700s, then selling it to pagan lepers along with weapons, gold, silver, diamonds, fruit, wheat, cotton, and our souls, they wouldn't have been able to come back, war with us, enslave us, and repeat the cycle every generation. If we had not opened the door and sold our daughters for status, sent our sons to war for pagan causes, many times against our own fam, we wouldn't have been, nor continue to be, in a living hell. Let's discuss some of these plantation pagan living. If a great majority don't give in to debauchery, playing in feces, that's boo-boo, leading to blood diseases such as dysentery, AIDS, HIV, all venereal diseases, Ebola, COVID, also known as coronavirus, etc., we wouldn't have diseases and death infiltrating our fam. Per my research, pagan scientists know exactly how these diseases are spread, but if they focused on how filthy and dangerous anal sex truly is, folks wouldn't accept homosexuality in the record numbers that they do, or any debauchery that includes blood and or feces. They wouldn't be licking, kissing, and eating fecal-filled butts and bloody vaginas, then spreading it through saliva to their children, their parents, themselves. I'll include dogs and cats here because they too lick and eat their blood and feces. Remember? Black folks know we know better. Cut it out. Next up, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. Please stop playing in the occult on plantations and reservations with these pagans, Satanists, witches, warlocks, goths, etc. Y'all who do ain't doing nothing but leaving a bunch of dark behind that our babies are going to have to be bothered with. There is nothing new under the sun. Our ancestors tried this before. How do y'all think they were enslaved? They went against the Creator's blueprint. That's how. Please research our history completely, not just the parts that catch your eye. Every action has a consequence, and playing in the occult through ritual conjures up demons and their negative forces. Check the timelines I included through every one of my books and references, and all of the resources I've included where other folks did the work. Sin and abominations have not changed, nor have the outcome, also known as curses, whether it was in the BCs, when the Egyptians, Grecians, Romans, Ethiopians, or any Ite tried it, or in the ADs, when Africans, Asians, Indians, Australians, Arabs, Brits, Germans, Americans, Spaniards, Hispanics, Latinx, whomever tried it. Nobody has got away with sinning and committing abominations minus consequences and curses. Stay on path, brothers and sisters, because systematic racism is the name of the game on the plantation. Do you really think the smarty-arty morphos that go on and on about carbon dating and landing on the moon and curing COVID with a vaccine they invented in a matter of months can't figure out how to eradicate their own invention of racism? It's been 7,000 plus years, folks, per their timeline. So yes, I call BS. And furthermore, per their track record, I say they intend to ride this beat till the wheels fall off. It works too well in their favor. Hence the reason the exact same secret society, coalitions, and conferences hang around. Not to mention the faux outrage, the billions of dollars lobbied, then pocketed in the name of minorities. It's gross. It don't take thousands of years to figure out how to stop being psychos for folks who have done nothing to you personally. God is great on this plantation. He has not forsaken his flock. All he asks is that we pay attention to word, implement it into our lives, and stay on path so we can walk away from the plantation life and enslavement. No hatred, no homo. Let me be clear. We are all still on this plantation and reservation. Talk that noise, work that neck, threaten anyone who disagrees, but we are being controlled by pagan lepers daily. We're told when to wake up, what to learn, when to work, how much to make, and it's usually against our Creator's blueprint. Our responsibility to ourselves and our babies is to realize it and figure it out. How to take our lives back. It's tricky because the very system and the people we trust are part of the setup to keep us in the dark, literally. I refer to them as masses and, as I said, overseers sellouts for some. The 100,000 people, the few 100,000 people look as if they have their poop together. The few 100,000 people that look as if they have their poop together and look to be on top of their game in this racist system it's nothing further from the truth. They are not truly in charge of their lives either. They are in the same position as lost sheep, but they are meaner, greedier, and truly don't give a freak. They are the ones who made me jaded. I trusted no one in the system anymore. Black presidents, politicians, favorite artists, actors, and athletes, anyone going along with the agenda can miss me. There are a few hundred brothers and sisters and maybe 3 pagan lepers who have figured out the system and are warning us. And I thank them. I thank God that He has brought all of us together to figure things out. Praise Him. Amanda Seales, I love a big mouth. Dave Chappelle, Paul Mooney, Dick Gregory, may they both rest in peace. Kwame Brown, Brother Farrakhan, and the Nation, etc., etc. They will drop knowledge and warn us, as most of them remain tied to the machine, going against the Creator's blueprint. It is what it is. I take their positive info and put it together with my 30 plus years of research, positive, recorded in my books to show who we are versus who those folks are. The woke nignogs of the plantation have not let me down completely. I take their positive info and put it together with my 30 plus years of researched positivity, recorded in my books to show who we are versus who those folks are. The woke nignogs of the plantation have not let me down completely. I've learned through discernment, word, and our collaborative work that we've been taught self-hate, and we hate on the most crucial positive parts of our genetic and cultural makeup. So many of our sisters have been taught to only concern themselves with being common whores, only concerned with our looks and money. The beautiful queens who were hated and simultaneously and secretly being admired are not meddled and used for fodder in their jokes to breed a low self-esteem race of robots. I refuse to bite. But I see plenty of sisters taking the bait, spending thousands on hair, makeup, and clothes instead of on this family's future. Let me add a quick sidebar about plastic surgery, BBLs. These are some articles. Plastic surgeons are seeing record patients after COVID-19, BBL popularity. Plastic surgery is booming. What are people getting done? When we received our stimulus checks, many said bump investing and went out and got cosmetic procedures like BBLs, nose jobs, even $1,000 hair. One would say that is one's business. However, a know-it-all like me has been keeping stats and track on all of us. And I've heard niggas crying about being poor and broke. I have watched many buy their drugs and alcohol as they pretended they didn't know why they couldn't afford rent. I have watched children suffer while parents did not. And do not get me started on the begging mofos in the family. So I was pretty grossed out by our actions, mainly because I am consistently taking up for our asses. Forgive me, God. I just want us to do better so we can be better. These elite pagans don't give nothing for free. So we should have been planning a real come up with that dough. You can do leg lifts to get a nice gluten. Free of charge, lazy cells. Now this was funny to me. And I'm not trying to be mean. It's funny. He says, this is so crazy. Y'all wasn't sweating Lala when she had that Mexican body. LOL. And he's right. Y'all weren't. We need to stop. Cut this out. Seriously. It's truly disappointing. This funky plantation and the system it was built upon has taught our brothers, our kings, to hate their mamas, disrespect sisters, fight their daddies, and tell the entire family to kiss their ass as they bow down to a white girl and her clan. And they brag about it. I listen to sellouts drooling over pretty hair, and that's in quotes, and green or hazel eyes. much more than I care to admit. I am not hating. I am not being jealous. I am not a big mouth, bitter, nappy head, black ass jigaboo. I might have a big mouth. I might be nappy head, but I'm not bitter and jealous. Our family has been targeted, allegedly for thousands of years, by the same group for the same reasons, and I'm sick of it. I will mentally fight to the death over it. Our happiness and blessings are promised as long as we are on path, not their plantations and reservations, and that, folks, is from the original creator's blueprint. Scriptures sent to the flock by word of mouth. First, Deuteronomy 7:9. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Deuteronomy 31:8. And the Lord, he is that go before thee. He will be with thee. He will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed. Deuteronomy 4:13. And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments. He wrote them upon 2 tables of stone. Genesis 9:11. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall flesh be cut off any more by the waters of the flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. Psalms 103:17-18. But the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting and everlasting upon them that fear him, and his righteousness unto children's children, to such as keep his covenant, and to those that remember his commandments, to so them. Exodus 19:5. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then shall ye be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Exodus 34:28. And he was there with the Lord 40 days, 40 nights. He did neither eat bread nor drink water. And he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. Hebrews 8:6. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which has established upon better promises. Isaiah 54:10. For the mountains shall depart, and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord, that hath mercy on thee. That's many different scriptures about our covenant with God. Don't take it for granted, brothers and sisters, because basically our body count is needed for this thriving economy based on trade of resources such as water, wood, cotton, wheat, tobacco, the cocoa plant, etc., in order for their system to work. We are the cash of the crops, one could say. Whether we're working the landfill niggas or in their factories, house niggas, we are all needed niggers in their OWO, NWO system. It's sickening and irritating now that I see the clear picture. This entire racist dark greed system was and is set up because most pagans don't want to work. They have figured out how to psychologically mess us up through hatred or the creator, self-hate. The breakdown of the black fam, drug warfare, ignorance. They are all up and through our neighborhoods planting firearms, crack, alcohol, whores, and diseases as more and more of God's children buy into the setup. They have studied us for centuries. They know what makes us tick, the good, the bad. Their setup is set up to benefit them. If you buy into the status quo, you will have to push their evil, greedy agenda. Bottom line, you can have all the common sense, degrees, clout, but their system is set up by a satanic chain of command, and it hasn't changed in 5,000 plus years. If we follow that system and slave for that system, we are part of that made up dystopian system that they fantasized about forever. Their system sets us up to go against our creator and ourselves so that we are automatically cursed to a perpetual generational lifetime of slavery. They have their secret societies and frats and sorrows and governments led by the military funded by their entertainment industry, and nobody is really the wiser. I will now share the different ways and avenues that pagans enter our lands after repeatedly being exiled in the BCs and ADs. They always are able to trick us through psychological warfare, i.e., campaigns, greed, or mission work. With campaigns, it's all about making our land a better place to live. They know how to chisel away at our leaders until we are convinced we're unhappy as a whole and want some more. It's usually the weakest souls of the group that help take us to hell. Believe it or not, whether it's transportation, technology, or filthy sex, men. Somebody at some point that the tribe trusted became overseers and sold us out. Every era, age, or century, the elders or leaders let them in to trade, allowing them to also bring occult rituals, drugs, drinks, weapons, etc., much like today. And once inside the walls, they continue to cause dissension and division. They always made and make certain to get rid of as much of the Creator's protection as possible, according to them. If we are in the dark, they can offer us education. If we are diseased, they can offer medical help. If we are warring with our own tribes because of a war they secretly started, they can offer weapons, all under the guise that they come in peace and are honestly concerned. It irritates my soul because their modus operandi is in all of their books and confessions. Though we think they're hiding it, they don't hide it. We won't research and put it all together, and they know that. So they sit back, laugh, and watch us make the same dumb choices, embracing their missions, missionaries, and religions they've stolen and meshed in with their belief of occult paganism. Believing in their political arenas and their government setups, which are two wings on the same bird, and allowing them to educate us on any and everything that we can educate ourselves on. Their first miseducation is their faux religion. Christ, a pagan god, is in the name of Christianity, which is rooted in Catholicism, which is rooted in paganism mixed with word. Yes, I know they implemented some of the Creator's words and warnings, but they stole Yeshua's walk, added false info about it, then threw in a trinity for good measure. All Christianity and colonialism go hand in hand. It is the original bloodline's responsibility to find out the reasons the Creator sent word warnings to our ancestors. That's including Yeshua, our brother, who is not the Creator, and Yeshua's walk. I then have information I pulled about Christianity and colonialism. And that's just information you can look up to. It's on Wiki. They're telling us what they did, and it's a good amount of information. They're using their missions to get into closed borders and spread faux religion, break down our families through dissension once the faux religion is spread, then continue the breakdown through warring, violence, and killings. Any and all diseases from unhealthy eating, drinking, smoking, sex, and etc., sexual debauchery, whoring, prostitution, polygamy, LGBTQ agenda, pedophilia, bestiality, and anything else that prevents us from having a blessed, happy, healthy, naturally birthed group of people. Basically, any sin and abomination that the Creator already warned us about in the last 5,000 years. Give or take a couple of thousand. Sheesh. This is about the top American and European missions that have helped in Africa. Playing peacekeeping, allegedly. And then, this is their breakdown of most missions. And it is education, health. Poor health can put education at risk. Contextual factors, social policies, individual family characteristics. They give the relationship between health and education. So they always focus on that. You're going to always find that with missions. It's going to be hospitals, education, government, and parks. They always are burying dead people and doing occult rituals in parks. I promise I'm not making it up. Who owns USAID Mission? USAID Mission is supposed to be the United States Agency for International Development, and it's one of the biggest directions that, it's one of the biggest developments that they have. This Samantha Powers is who they put in charge. I want you to get a look at this. Now, you know that ain't right. And her husband and her believe in a cult, and they're both in these fraternities and all this other information. That's pretty thick because I pulled a bunch of their information, which I always do when I research. I don't just go off the cuff of one thing or two things. I research literally for hours on this stuff. Focus on global resources and months and years. This is another one of their breakdowns about missions and stuff. That's how they get in, then spread their culture and their education and their religion, which doesn't have anything to do with our religion 9 times out of 10. It's normally mixed in with the cult. And then there we have a couple of black folks that's helping, our little overseers. And they might not even know they're helping. I don't know. But I do know that these people are breaking in and doing things they shouldn't be doing on our lands. Next, we have the miseducation of their government set up. The outline could work in any tribe's favor. Our ancestral blueprint is what was used to set up government. The elders, who are wise, are revered and listened to and depended on to make wise choices and pass down wisdom. So, in other words, they came in, they saw how we did things, and they stole that and then added pagan occult to it. We have the middle age group of adults next who keep the community in working condition. They decide what is best daily to feed the tribe. They clothe the tribe, they educate the tribe, but they still confer with the elders. And it is all decided with the Creator's blueprint, word leading. Last on the chart are the young folks. The young adults are being prepared to take over for their parents. The youngest are being watched by everybody in the tribe, so their childhood will not lead to a crummy adulthood. Keep an eye on these kids. They have responsibilities and have to learn too, but they are allowed to play, run, jump. They're allowed to be children before adulthood steps in. Pagans call this thousand-old blueprint communism, which they stole and pimped on pagan Russians. But the difference between the system Russians follow versus the one they stole from the black ancestors is that the Creator's word and blueprint leads our tribes. The tribe does not lead word, nor the blueprint. Lost sheep forget that when we are following behind pagans. The government is one bird, an eagle. Look at their symbolism. And the wings may be on opposite sides, but they both belong to one body, Democrats and Republicans, and anything that follows under it, period. Therefore, the government, foreign aid, the United Nations, however, and whatever they want to disguise themselves under as they whisper, we come in peace, will never trick me up again. I am on to them. I am tattling, and I'm truly coming in peace. I have a breakdown of Democrats and Republicans fighting for thousands of years over these same exact topics. This one goes back to 1856, but I've gone back further. They're always fighting over immigration. They don't want nobody new here, even though they don't belong here. Capital punishment, abortion, gay rights. Then some on the back here is terrorism, poor and needy, climate change. They've done some new ones, but that's the old one from 1856, which I'm going to include on my website. And then that's the new one. And of course, blue is Democrats, red is Republicans, and they're still fighting over the same crap and have us involved now too. Then we have United States foreign aid. It gives a breakdown of our government, how they're in every country with their noses stuck in and basically pretending as if they're helping. But you need to study it because you'll find out the real deal. They're not helping these folks any more than they help us here in America. And I'm not trying to be mean. I appreciate whatever good-hearted people are doing. There's not enough good-hearted people, and especially in our government and in our schools and in our hospitals. We need to open our eyes. I'm not going to sugarcoat that for them. U.S. foreign aid by implementing agencies. They show us the breakdown of our international development, AID, that's the USAID I just talked about, Department of Defense, Department of State, Department of Health and Human Services, Treasury, Millennium Challenge, Department of Energy, Peace Corps, Agriculture, the Interior, Army, the Agency for Trade and Development, our Air Force, our Department of Labor, our Navy, African Development Foundation, Inter-American Foundation, Environment Protection Agency, Department of Justice, Department of Commerce, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Transportation, and Federal Trade Commission, FTC. All of these breakdowns remind me of the breakdown I showed earlier of all their corporate graphs, and basically it's based off the satanic setup. I'm sorry, it's just true. Put it together and look at it. See how they have put different players in place to bring us down with different things. We're now accepting homosexuality and making excuses for it, getting mad at one another if we don't accept. It's totally against God. It's totally against our setup. Even if you don't believe in the Creator, if you believe in your ancestors, they were not around here being homosexuals. Then I have a breakdown of these maps. And I'm talking about the ancestors that weren't. I'm not talking about the ancestors who did. Ongoing conscription versus no military, enforced conscription, draft systems, and current government plans. They keep up with all of this. The reason I pull up this is because they keep up with all this information so they'll know who has armies and who don't, who they can go in and war with, who they can get to come on our side and war against their own people. We're not supposed to be warring any more than we're supposed to be gay, per our beliefs, per what worked for our ancestors. I'm not just saying that because I believe that. I believe that. But the proof is in the pudding. Percent of population that have a favorable view of the U.S. between the years 2002 and 2016. And there's not a lot. Of course, the numbers are small. But I'll add that. Then I have a breakdown where I am saying I'll sum it all up with a few memes and reasons we keep getting duped, which is why they never intend to stop duping us. So these are going to be different memes about our government. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Ecclesiastes 12 through 10. And we have that Folky guy, Fauci, whatever his name is, and we have Biden, our president, and then we have Bill Gates, who's trying to push that vaccine. So we have no business trusting these people. Is basically what this meme is saying. Definition of stupid: knowing the truth, seeing evidence of the truth, but still believing a lie. Then we have Bush, 9/11. Then we on the second thing is Bin Laden, and then America handing Bin Laden the big piece of wood. So they're just showing that it was our own government that had everything to do with 9/11. And believe you me, I studied it for a year, and there's no lie told on that. I have the backup. I'm not just, giving information or just jaw jacking. I have the information, the receipts. We control black media images and write all black social narratives. We therefore tell the world what to believe about black people. We also tell black people what to believe about themselves. This allows us to vilify black people in order to validate our mistreatment of them. It allows us to demoralize them in order to divide them and make them self-hating. Our control over their image also allows us to negatively steer black culture. This was under the Black People Matrix. And I totally agree. There's Jimmy Walker with Kid Dynamite, and of course women twerking and so on and so forth. Stockholm Syndrome, a condition where the hostage slave develops a psychological alliance with its captors. And that's a lot of us. We definitely have Stockholm Syndrome because we've been indoctrinated to have it. We have white junk foods that are killing our black Americans. White sugar, white flour bleached, white rice polished, white salt, and white cow's milk. And they put, if it's white, don't trust it. And he's obese. So that's speaking volumes of our health. Say it louder for the racists in the back. This guy says, let me get this straight, America. You terrorized and enslaved the entire race for over 300 years. You banned them from your privileges for the next 100 years. You filled 2/3 of your prison cells with them until today. And you're angry when they don't applaud your history? Chris Silver. I totally agree, Chris. It's ridiculous. The majority of people believe that the most frequently washed body part in 2021 was the hands, but in fact, it was the brain. Again, I agree. And this little lady here is Jane Elliott, and she is wonderful about telling who her people are and not being happy with the way black people are being treated. So I'm not saying we're victims. A lot of times we're cutting up too, but there is up and down to that. There's a scale. We cut up, but there are people that's coming for us. There are racists who hate us, and Jane tells good information about it. I laid out our past on my first podcast. I have now gone over the path to our present in the second podcast, and my third and last podcast for the year 2021 will be next. It is regarding our future and the future of those beautiful and handsome babies we have populated the earth with, as the Creator requested. I know I have shared a lot, but please stay tuned, fam. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't know it is my calling. One love. I laid out our past on my first podcast. I have now gone over the path to our present in the second podcast, and my third and last podcast for the year 2021 will be next. It is regarding our future and the future of those beautiful and handsome babies we have populated the earth with, as the Creator requested. I know I have shared a lot, but please stay tuned, fam. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't know it is my calling. One love.